Welcome to the Explainer. So picture this, the year is 1893. The nation is literally teetering on the brink of total economic collapse, and the most powerful man in the country is secretly harboring a lethal threat. And I mean a threat that absolutely no army can defeat. Today, we're jumping straight into a high-stakes historical thriller. It's a true story of absolute secrecy, crazy medical daring, and a wildly dangerous cover-up that honestly reads exactly like a Hollywood heist script, except this actually happened. Right off the bat, we have to ask, how on earth do you make the leader of the free world just vanish? You know, in our modern era of 24-hour news cycles, it's completely impossible. But what happens when the stability of an entire nation rests on keeping a life-threatening illness entirely under wraps? Pulling this off required logistical acrobatics that border on pure madness. I mean, making a sitting president disappear for a massive, highly dangerous medical procedure without tipping off an aggressive press corps or his political rivals, that is the ultimate high-wire act. And we really have to keep the timeline in mind here. It's 1893. There are no antibiotics. Surgery is a brutal, super dangerous gamble. And okay, sure, there were no smartphones back then, but the press corps? They were absolutely ruthless. Investigative reporters shadowed the president's every single move. So, pulling off a deception of this magnitude meant outsmarting a very observant public using primitive medical technology. It was exactly this era's unique blend of physical vulnerability and highly aggressive journalism that made this phantom operation terrifyingly dangerous, but, well, entirely necessary. Okay, Section 1. A President's Deadly Secret. Here's where our thriller really kicks off. President Grover Cleveland discovers this rough patch on the roof of his mouth. Doctors are smuggled in to examine it, and the diagnosis they deliver is totally grim. It's a fast-growing, highly malignant tumor. Now, in 1893, the word cancer wasn't just a diagnosis, it was practically a guaranteed death sentence. And the American public was entirely in the dark. But for Cleveland, it wasn't just his own life on the line. He was carrying the massive weight of a fragile American economy that was already teetering right on the edge of total collapse. The stakes, they seriously couldn't have been higher. Wall Street was incredibly volatile, and a vicious financial panic was already starting to unfold. Cleveland was widely seen as the only stabilizing force holding the entire economy together. If word leaked that the president was dying, oh man, investors would flee in droves, banks would crash, and the country would plunge into an unprecedented, devastating depression. So, the administration was suddenly racing against a ticking clock. Failure, or even a tiny leak to the press, simply wasn't an option. Moving on to Section 2, the yacht cover-up plan. So, instead of checking in to a prominent hospital where reporters would immediately swarm the place, the president's inner circle hatched a plot straight out of an espionage novel. Get this. The plan: secure the Oneida, a private yacht owned by a wealthy friend. Smuggle a highly specialized surgical team aboard completely under the radar. Sail out into the Long Island Sound, operate on the moving vessel, and then just violently deny every single rumor that popped up on land. It was literally a covert heist, but they were trying to steal a tumor. Which brings us to Section 3, surgery at sea. Let's look at the timeline of this phantom op. Day 1, under the cover of night, the president quietly slips out of New York, boarding the yacht completely unseen. The doctors arrive separately, sneaking aboard with their medical bags hidden deep inside their heavy coats. Talk about cloak and dagger. Then, Day 2, the tension peaks as the yacht sets sail. The moment they are completely away from land, the salon of the ship is rapidly transformed into a makeshift operating theater. And Day 3, as Cleveland recovers in secret below deck, his team goes to work feeding the press a completely fabricated story to explain away his sudden absence. I mean, think about this for a second. Removing cancer is dangerous enough on its own, but doing it in secret on a moving boat? That is terrifying. A team of the nation's absolute top surgeons is clustered tightly around a chair that is literally bolted to the floor of a yacht. They have to perfectly time their incisions with the roll of the ocean waves just to avoid a fatal bleed. Plus, they're using highly volatile early anesthetics like ether and nitrous oxide in a confined, rocking space. They ended up removing a large portion of Cleveland's upper jaw and palate, all while the boat steams ahead at half speed just to minimize the rocking. It is an absolutely harrowing medical feat. And that brings us to Section 4. Fooling the entire country. The official narrative fed to the anxious public was so simple and disarming. The president is just suffering from a minor toothache. He's taking a well-deserved relaxing pleasure cruise. Nothing to see here, folks. But the reality out on the water was an absolute nightmare. Cleveland was heavily bandaged, missing a massive chunk of his jaw, completely incapacitated, and recovering from major, highly invasive surgery. The sheer disconnect between that bright, sunny public lie and the grim private horror, well, that was the true mastery of this deception. And against all odds, the deception actually held. The surgical team was sworn to absolute secrecy. I mean, they were facing complete professional and personal ruin if they spoke a single word. The phantom timeline worked perfectly, right down to his planned arrival back on land, which deliberately coincided with the delivery of a custom-fitted hard rubber prosthesis. It plugged the gaping hole in his jaw, and, amazingly, it allowed him to speak completely normally. When he strode in to address Congress shortly after, looking perfectly healthy, no one had a single clue. It was the ultimate sleight of hand. As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with this final thought. The Commodore's secret wasn't just a successful, daring surgery. It was an absolute masterclass in controlling information and manipulating reality at the very highest levels of government. I mean, if a small team of people could secretly operate on the President of the United States on a moving boat over a century ago and keep it out of the history books for decades, what other incredible truths are still floating out there just waiting to be discovered?